Black CEO mistaken for a scammer at her dealership. The truth left everyone speechless. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. You can't afford this. Every head in the showroom turned. The man in the navy suit stood tall, face red with authority he didn't own, finger jabbing like a weapon. He wasn't whispering. He wanted the crowd to hear. And they did. The young black woman in the gray hoodie didn't flinch. Her hands stayed loose at her sides, her gaze steady. Silence was her shield. The car behind her gleamed chrome and glass under showroom lights, but the tension outshined the Mercedes itself. The air wasn't quiet anymore. It was charged. Two security guards stepped closer, shoulders squared. They weren't sure what she'd done, but the man's voice had already written the script. A trespasser, a fraud, someone out of place. The crowd murmured. Phones slid out of pockets. A dozen cameras rose like a forest of witnesses. Some tilted their heads, uneasy. Others smirked, ready for spectacle. The man leaned in, breath hot with contempt. You think this place is for you? Cars like this cost more than your life. Her eyes didn't move. Calm, anchored. He wanted her rattled. She gave him stone instead. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now back to her. The guard on the left shifted, hand near his radio. The one on the right crossed his arms, waiting for a signal. Neither asked a question. Neither needed proof. The accusation was enough. From the back of the room, a voice whispered, "Is she stealing?" Someone else hushed them, but the seed was planted. Suspicion spread fast, the way bias always does without evidence, without pause. The man straightened, voice rising. "Security, get her out. She doesn't belong here." His words echoed across marble floors. For him, the judgment was already final. She still hadn't spoken, but her silence wasn't surrender. It was patience, because the only thing more dangerous than a lie shouted in a crowded room is the truth waiting for its turn. She hadn't come here to make a scene. She came dressed in quiet, a gray hoodie, plain jeans, sneakers with scuffed soles. No diamonds, no entourage, no signs that the floor beneath her feet technically belonged to her. To them, she was just another curious customer walking into a luxury dealership she couldn't possibly afford. That's exactly what she wanted. Her name was Maya Carter, and she was the CEO. Not just of this showroom, not just of this brand, but of the entire automotive group that had swallowed this dealership 2 years ago. Her signature was on the contracts. Her authority paid every salary in the room. Yet she stood there invisible. By design. The experiment had started an hour earlier. Maya had left her office without assistants, without drivers. She wanted to see one more time if the promises of customer-first service meant the same thing when the customer didn't look like wealth. And now, here it was, the test unfolding faster than she expected. She remembered being 23, walking into a dealership just like this one in Atlanta. She had enough commission saved to buy her first car outright. But the salesman smirked, slid her paperwork back across the desk and said, "Credit's not for people like you." She went home on the bus that day, furious, humiliated, and more determined than ever. That memory never left her. It lived in her spine. And today, standing under the floodlights of her own showroom, the same script replayed. Different man, different city, same prejudice. The crowd didn't see a CEO. They saw a hoodie. They saw dark skin. They saw out of place. The suited man's finger hovered inches from her face, daring her to fight back, daring her to shout. But Maya had learned long ago that silence carried its own weight. Around the showroom, salespeople pretended to busy themselves, but their eyes lingered. A young trainee near the reception desk shifted uncomfortably. She knew something was wrong, but she said nothing yet. Maya took a slow breath, steady as stone. This wasn't just about her. It was about the woman 2 rows back clutching her phone, deciding if she should record. It was about the teenage boy staring wide-eyed at how adults in uniforms treated her without proof. It was about the whispers, the smirks, the way bias tried to rewrite truth in real time. She didn't wear the armor of a title today. She wore simplicity, and simplicity exposed everything. The man leaned in again, words sharp enough to cut. People like you don't buy cars like this. Walk out before we throw you out. Maya blinked once. Not in fear, in recognition. She'd heard this before. She'd lived this before, only this time, she owned the building. The suited man didn't lower his hand, his finger still hovered like a verdict already delivered. His voice rose, sharp enough to echo against the glass walls. Security, do your job. Get her out. The guards exchanged a glance. No questions, no verification. The accusation alone was enough. One stepped forward, hand brushing the radio at his belt. The other squared his shoulders, waiting for a nod to move. Behind the desk, a sales associate in a slim tie chuckled under his breath. I knew it. Another one of those walk-ins. Think a hoodie gets you a test drive. His voice wasn't loud, but the smirk carried across the room. Maya didn't move. Her stillness was louder than their noise. The suited man sneered, circling her like she was prey. See this car? He said, patting the polished hood of the Mercedes. Costs more than your house. Probably more than your entire life. Do you even know how many zeros are on this price tag? A few people in the crowd laughed nervously. Phones tilted higher, recording. Someone whispered, "She's just standing there. She hasn't said a word." The associate chimed in again, louder this time, riding the wave of arrogance. We've had scammers before. Fake cards, fake IDs. Always the same look. Always the same story. Can't fool us. He winked at the suited man, as if prejudice counted as teamwork. The guard on the left stepped closer. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. His tone carried rehearsed authority, the kind used to end arguments before they began. But Maya didn't argue. She simply turned her head, slowly, and looked at him. The weight of that gaze made him pause. For a second, just a second, he hesitated. The suited man caught it and barked, "Don't wait. Remove her now." In the back corner, a teenage girl clutched her mother's sleeve. "Why are they treating her like that?" The mother whispered, "Because they think she doesn't belong." The words carried further than she realized. Maya breathed in once, slow, steady. Her silence was no longer just patience. It was strategy. The sales associate leaned across the desk, voice dripping contempt. "Lady, if you're looking for cheap, we've got used models out back. But this?" He gestured toward the shining car. "This is for real clients." The phrase landed like a slap. Real clients. The line between dignity and dismissal, drawn in the middle of the showroom. A few in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. One man muttered, "That's not right." Another lifted his phone higher. The suited man didn't notice. He was too busy performing. "Go ahead, film it," he shouted toward the cameras. "Let them see how we protect our business from frauds." The irony slipped past him. Every word he spat was being captured. Every sneer etched into pixels. Every insult preserved. Maya still hadn't spoken. But her silence pressed harder now, bending the air around her. The guard reached again for her arm. And in that instant, the room crossed a line it couldn't uncross. The guard's hand hovered just inches from her sleeve. One small motion and the room would erupt. Yet Maya Carter didn't step back. She didn't raise her voice. She simply stood spine straight, hands loose, eyes steady. The silence spread like smoke. It wasn't weakness. It was weight. The kind that pressed on every person watching, made them shift, made them wonder why she wasn't cracking. The suited man scoffed. "Cat got your tongue? You know you don't belong here. If you had any sense, you'd leave quietly." His words tried to slice, but they dulled against her stillness. Maya's gaze flicked once toward the guard. Calm, unblinking. He froze mid-step, as if her eyes had pulled him into a mirror he didn't want to look at. The crowd felt it too. A man near the entrance whispered, "Why isn't she saying anything?" A woman beside him murmured, "Because she doesn't have to." The sales associate at the desk tried again, voice rising. "You're wasting everyone's time. Do you know how many serious buyers are in here? You think anyone's going to stand around while you play games?" Maya didn't answer. Her chest rose and fell slowly, like she had all the time in the world. The suited man slammed his palm on the car hood. The metallic thud cracked through the room. "Do you hear me? Get out." Phones caught the sound, caught the spit at the corner of his lips, caught the fury of a man mistaking volume for power. Maya blinked once. That was her only response. And somehow, that blink landed heavier than his shout. A teenager filming near the wall muttered into his camera mic, "She hasn't moved. Not once. She's just still, like she knows something. The guard shifted again, uneasy. He wasn't used to this. Usually people yelled, defended, begged. She did none of that. She just stood like a stone in a storm. The suited man mistook it for surrender. He turned to the crowd, smug. See? Nothing to say. That's because she's a fraud. But the crowd wasn't fully with him anymore. They had seen her eyes, her calm, her refusal to fold. And calm has a gravity that arrogance can't match. Maya inhaled again, a deep, steadying breath. She remembered 20 years earlier, the night a loan officer had laughed in her face and told her, "You're not qualified." She'd walked out of that office with nothing but resolve. That memory steadied her now. The guard's hand fell back to his side. He muttered low, almost to himself, "She's not even resisting." The suited man spun. "Then make her resist. Do your job." But the guard didn't move this time. Because silence, Maya's silence, was doing more damage than any outburst ever could. And in that charged stillness, the balance of power began, ever so slightly, to tilt. The silence should have ended it. But silence rarely ends anything. It sharpens the edges. It makes witnesses restless. From the far side of the showroom, a phone lifted higher. A red recording light glowed like a tiny warning flare. The teenager who held it whispered into his mic, "This is going online. People need to see this." His voice trembled not from fear, but from certainty. A few feet away, a young woman in a dealership uniform hesitated at the reception desk. Her name tag read, Elena, trainee. Barely 3 weeks into the job, she had already memorized the golden rule drilled into every new hire. Never question the customer in the suit. Always question the one who doesn't look like money. She had hated that rule since the first day. And now she was watching it play out in real time. Her fingers tapped nervously against the keyboard. She glanced from the suited man, red-faced and shouting, to the woman in the hoodie who hadn't moved. Something in Elena's gut twisted. This wasn't professionalism. This was spectacle. The suited man noticed the phones and sneered louder. "Film it! Go ahead! The internet loves frauds getting exposed." He jabbed a finger toward Maya again, as though the cameras were his allies. But the lenses didn't follow him. They lingered on her, the woman standing steady, absorbing insult after insult without raising her voice. Viewers would see the contrast. They always did. Near the entrance, an older man in a leather jacket muttered to no one in particular, "Why are they treating her like a criminal? She hasn't done anything." His companion shushed him, but the words hung in the air. Others heard. Others agreed. Elena finally spoke, her voice soft but carrying. "Sir, she hasn't even said a word yet." The suited man spun, glaring at her. "Stay out of this. You're just a trainee." Her cheeks flushed, but she didn't look away. Her silence now mirrored Maya's hesitant, but firming into something more. Another phone went up, then another. The crowd wasn't whispering anymore. They were murmuring, shifting, choosing sides without realizing it. The guard, caught between orders and unease, muttered again, "She's not resisting. She's just standing." The suited man barked, louder this time, desperate to drown out the doubt. "She's stalling. She's wasting everyone's time. Real buyers don't look like this. Real clients don't come in here dressed like—" He cut himself off too late. The words had already landed. Phones caught every syllable. Elena's lips parted. The words, spilling before fear, could stop them. "That's not policy. That's profiling." Gasps flickered through the room. Someone whispered, "She's right." Maya still hadn't spoken. But now, she wasn't the only one standing against the storm. And for the first time, the man in the suit looked around and realized the room was no longer entirely his. The air shifted, heavy with murmurs, cameras raised like a jury forming. For a moment, the suited man faltered. Then the click of heels cut through the tension. A new voice sliced the room. "What's going on here?" The showroom manager had arrived. A tall woman in a tailored blazer, hair pulled tight, clipboard in hand as if authority itself came from paperwork. She scanned the scene with practiced disapproval. The suited man wasted no time. "This woman is trespassing, trying to pass herself off as a buyer. I told security to remove her." The manager's eyes landed on Maya. Hoodie, jeans, calm face. To her, the verdict was obvious before a word was spoken. "We don't tolerate loitering or scams in this dealership," she said coldly. "Ma'am, you need to leave." A ripple went through the crowd. Phones caught every syllable. Elena, still behind the desk, found her voice again. "But she hasn't even spoken." The manager snapped. "Silence. One more word and you'll be written up." Her tone cracked like a whip. Elena shrank back, but the seed was planted. Witnesses saw it, the eagerness to punish the wrong person. Maya remained unmoving, steady as stone. The suited man smirked, emboldened by backup. See? Even the manager knows. This isn't for people like her. The manager didn't flinch at his words. She reinforced them. This is a premium environment. We can't have anyone lowering our standards in front of real clients. That phrase again, real clients. It lingered in the air like a stain. Near the entrance, the older man in the leather jacket spoke louder this time. She hasn't done a thing. You're just judging her clothes. The manager's glare pinned him down. Sir, please mind your own business. But others were listening now. A woman holding her phone muttered into the mic. Did she just say lowering our standards? That's on record. The suited man chuckled, victory dripping from his grin. Security, you heard her. Throw her out. Now. The guard hesitated again, eyes flicking between Maya's silence and the crowd's unease. The manager's voice rose, sharper, desperate to regain control. You are not a client here. You are not welcome. Leave before we call the police. Gasps rippled. Phones shook as they zoomed closer. This wasn't policy anymore. This was hostility, bare and unmasked. Maya breathed once, slow, still calm, still silent. But her silence was no longer just patience. It was pressure. Pressure that made every insult echo louder, every command sound uglier. The crowd felt it. They weren't just watching a scene. They were witnessing a fracture. And with every passing second, the fracture widened. The manager's words still hung in the air when the suited man barked the final order. Security! Remove her! Now! This time, the guards moved. One reached for Maya's arm, fingers brushing the fabric of her hoodie. The crowd gasped, the sound sharp as breaking glass. She didn't flinch, but the room did. Phones jolted upward, capturing every frame, every breath. A chorus of whispers turned into open protest. Wait, she hasn't done anything. Why are you touching her? That's not right. The suited man smirked, feeding on the chaos. See? Fraudsters always stall until the police arrive. She's no different. The manager stepped closer, clipboard clutched like a gavel. Your presence is disruptive. You're not a client. You're a trespasser. And you are hereby banned from this dealership. Her words struck like a sentence. Then, with deliberate cruelty, she snapped her fingers at the sales associate. Cancel any paperwork under her name. Flag it in the system. The associate grinned, too eager. He tapped at his keyboard, then announced loudly, Done. She's blacklisted. No purchase, no lease, no service, nothing. Gasps spread like fire through the crowd. Someone muttered into their phone's mic. They just blacklisted her without even checking ID. This is wild. The guard tightened his grip, pulling harder. Maya's arm jerked slightly, but her eyes stayed locked forward, unblinking. The manager leaned in, venom dripping from every word. Leave now, before you're escorted out like a thief. A mother in the crowd clutched her son's shoulder, shaking her head. Don't look away, she whispered. This is what happens to people like us. The suited man laughed, cruel and loud. You thought you could walk in here and touch cars worth more than your paycheck? Pathetic. He slapped the hood of the Mercedes again, mocking. This isn't your world. Phones caught it all, the sneer, the shove, the words, and still, Maya didn't speak. Her silence had become unbearable. It magnified every insult, every action. The longer she stood unmoving, the more their aggression looked like desperation. Elena at the desk couldn't hold back anymore. She stood, voice trembling but firm. She hasn't even shown an ID. You never asked for proof. You just assumed. The manager spun on her, eyes blazing. Sit down, trainee, or you're finished. But it was too late. Witnesses had heard it. The room had shifted again. The guard yanked once more, harder this time. Ma'am, you're leaving with me. And that was the breaking point. The line between insult and violation had been crossed. The crowd knew it, the cameras knew it. Everyone in that room would remember this exact moment. The moment they touched the wrong woman. The guard's grip tightened, ready to drag her toward the door. Phones tilted, capturing the humiliation live. And then Maya moved. Not in panic, not in resistance, just one deliberate action. She slipped her hand free with calm precision and reached into her pocket. The guard stiffened, half expecting a struggle. Instead, she pulled out a slim black phone, screen lighting her face with a cold glow. The room stilled. Her voice, the first sound she had made since entering, was steady as steel. Carla, activate protocol. The words cut sharper than any shout. On the other end, A crisp reply came instantly, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Protocol engaged, ma'am. Logging incident now." The guard froze. The manager blinked. The suited man scoffed, but the scoff wavered. "What protocol?" he sneered, forcing a laugh. "You think calling your friend is going to save you? This is a dealership, not a courtroom." But Maya wasn't talking to him. Her eyes stayed on the screen. "Mark the time. Record every word spoken. Cross. Check with internal security footage." Carla's voice confirmed. "Timestamp locked. All cameras synced. Every statement is being uploaded to the compliance board." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Phones caught it. A man whispered, "Did she just say compliance board?" Elena's eyes widened. She understood. This wasn't just a customer. This was someone with access. Someone inside. The manager tried to recover, clipboard trembling in her hand. "Don't be ridiculous. You have no authority here. Guards, remove her." But the guards didn't move this time. Something in Maya's tone, something in the sudden shift of power held them in place. Maya lowered the phone slightly, her gaze sweeping across the room. For the first time, she spoke not just to Carla, but to everyone. "You put your hands on me. You canceled records without verification. You called me a trespasser in front of witnesses. Every second is now documented. Every insult, every touch, every order. And when this is reviewed, you'll understand what real accountability feels like." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The weight of her words pressed heavier than shouting ever could. The suited man barked, desperate. "You're bluffing. You're nothing. Just a woman in a hoodie trying to act powerful." Maya's eyes locked on him, unblinking. Funny. Power doesn't need to act. The crowd buzzed, whispers turning to open disbelief at the manager and her staff. The balance was shifting, slow but undeniable. Carla's voice chimed again through the phone, crisp, deliberate. "Ma'am, Phase 2 is ready at your command." Maya's lips curved, not into a smile, but into certainty. The storm had changed direction. The room quivered on the edge of collapse. The guard's grip loosened. The crowd leaned closer, phones raised higher, as if instinct told them history was about to stamp itself here. Maya lifted her chin, calm, precise, like she'd rehearsed this moment in silence for years. "You've accused me of fraud. You've called me a trespasser. You blacklisted my name without a single verification." Her voice carried across the marble, steady as stone. "But there's one fact you forgot to check." She raised her phone. On the glowing screen, a document filled with seals and signatures glared back. With a flick, she turned it outward so cameras could catch. "My name is Maya Carter. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Horizon Automotive Group. And this dealership," she gestured around, slow, deliberate, claiming the space with every motion, "belongs to me." Gasps erupted. The air itself seemed to buckle. The suited man froze, his mouth half open, words dying in his throat. The manager's clipboard slipped from her fingers, clattering against the floor. The guard stepped back as though burned. Phones caught every angle, the reveal, the shock, the silence that followed. Elena at the desk pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. She'd suspected, but she hadn't dared to believe. Now, belief flooded the room like a tidal wave. Maya didn't gloat. She didn't shout. She simply stated truth, and truth was heavier than any insult. The suited man stammered, desperate to cling to denial. "That's impossible. You're lying. You can't." But his protest was drowned out by Carla's voice, still on the phone, projected through the speaker for all to hear. "For confirmation, this is Horizon Group headquarters. Miss, Carter's authority overrides all local management. This property is registered under her leadership. All access and financial control rest with her." Silence, then murmurs, then open shock. A teenager filming near the wall whispered breathlessly, "She owns it. She actually owns the whole thing." The older man in the leather jacket let out a short, triumphant laugh. "Told you it wasn't right." The manager's face drained of color. She tried to recover, tried to speak. There must be some mistake. We didn't know." Maya cut her off, voice sharper now, each word measured like a blade. "You didn't care to know. Because to you, appearance is enough. Hoodie means fraud. Brown skin means trespasser. Silence means weakness. But you've confused silence for something else." Her gaze swept the room, locking eyes with the suited man until he dropped his stare to the floor. "You've mistaken restraint for permission. That was your last mistake." The crowd erupted, some gasping, others cheering softly under their breath. The phones caught every syllable, every face shifting from arrogance to horror. In that moment, the balance of the showroom flipped entirely. The accused had become the owner. The judged had become the judge. And there was no going back. For a heartbeat, the room was silent. The kind of silence that doesn't soothe but suffocates. Then, chaos. The suited man staggered back as though Maya's words had struck him physically. This isn't real. She's bluffing. His voice cracked. Thin now, stripped of confidence. The manager bent to snatch up her clipboard, fumbling, papers slipping like sand through her fingers. Her mouth opened, shut, opened again, but no excuses came out. The certainty she wielded minutes ago had bled away, leaving only panic. The guard who had grabbed Maya let his hand fall to his side, his knuckles white. He looked around helplessly, eyes darting between the cameras, the crowd, and the woman he had just manhandled. I didn't know, he muttered, voice breaking. Elena, behind the desk, pressed both hands flat on the counter. Relief and vindication burned in her chest, but so did fury at her colleagues. She turned sharply to the manager. You didn't even ask her name. You didn't check a single thing. You just assumed. The crowd surged louder now. Guests who had stood silent were speaking openly, some with anger, others with awe. A man near the door raised his phone higher, narrating for his live stream. We're watching history. They just humiliated their own CEO on camera. Look at them now. Look at their faces. The mother who'd whispered to her son earlier now held him close, her eyes fierce. Remember this, she told him quietly. Remember how quickly power changes when truth comes out. The suited man's arrogance crumbled into desperation. He pointed at Maya, finger shaking this time. You can't just walk in here and... But his words faltered when Maya met his stare. Calm, unwavering. He dropped his hand, jaw clenching, face pale. The manager tried again, voice trembling. Miss Carter, if we had known, if someone had told us. Maya's head tilted, slow, deliberate. You needed someone to tell you to treat people with dignity? The words landed like stone. The crowd erupted, some cheering, others gasping. Phones caught everything. The guards retreating, the manager's lips pressed tight with shame. The suited man sweating under the weight of his own humiliation. One guest clapped, then another. Then a ripple spread, soft but unmistakable. Applause. The sound rolled across the showroom, not loud enough to drown everything, but sharp enough to slice through the shame. The staff flinched under it. The suited man shook his head violently, mouthing protests no one believed. And Maya stood at the center of it all, calm, steady, the only fixed point in a room spinning out of control. The power she had concealed was no longer hidden. It was undeniable. And everyone who had doubted her now stood in the shadow of that truth, caught on camera, caught in shame, with no way to erase what they had done. The applause didn't fade. It swelled. Phones captured every clap, every whisper of approval, every stunned face of the staff who had moments ago felt untouchable. Maya lifted her phone again, her voice steady. Carla. The reply was immediate, projected through the speaker. Yes, Miss Carter. Log today's incident for audit. Effective, immediately terminate the sales associate on duty for misconduct. Suspend both security guards pending investigation, and remove the showroom manager from all Horizon systems. Access revoked. Credentials canceled. The room erupted. The sales associate's smirk shattered. His eyes went wide, hands hovering uselessly over the keyboard. Wait, what? You can't... But even as he stammered, his terminal blinked red. A system message flashed. Access denied. The guards looked down at their radios, lights dimming to black. Their earpieces went dead. They weren't employees anymore. The manager stumbled back, reaching for her badge. She tapped it against the office door panel. Buzz. Red. Locked out. Her mouth fell open. Carla's crisp voice confirmed. Access revoked. Records updated. Notifications sent to HR and compliance. Effective immediately. Gasps rolled through the showroom. The suited man stood frozen, caught between disbelief and horror. You can't just fire people on the spot, he shouted, voice cracking. Maya turned her gaze on him, calm and merciless. I don't fire people. I remove liabilities. The crowd reacted instantly. Some clapped harder. Others murmured in awe. The cameras zoomed in, capturing her words like a final blow. Elena stepped forward, trembling but resolute. She warned you. She warned all of you. Her voice carried now, louder than before. The manager tried one last defense. We were just following protocol. Maya's eyes narrowed. Protocol doesn't humiliate innocent people. Protocol doesn't blacklist without proof. What you followed wasn't company policy. It was prejudice. And prejudice has no place in Horizon. The finality in her tone left no cracks to crawl into. No excuses. No escape. The suited man, face pale, voice desperate, turned toward the crowd. You're all fools if you think this is real. She can't own this whole place. A guest shouted back, phone raised high. She doesn't just own this place, she is the place. And you're done. Laughter and cheers rippled. The suited man stumbled back, words collapsing into nothing. Maya slipped her phone into her pocket. The storm was over. The verdict had been delivered, not in screams, but in silence turned to steel. And in that silence, the staff who had ridiculed her now stood unemployed. The guards stripped of power. The manager exiled from the very system she once lorded over. Justice didn't need noise. Justice had already spoken. The crowd stood frozen in the aftermath, their phones still raised, but no one was speaking now. Every pair of eyes fixed on the woman in the gray hoodie who had just dismantled an entire staff with less effort than it took to raise her voice. Maya stepped closer to the Mercedes, her reflection gleaming in its chrome. For a moment, she let the silence settle again, not the tense silence from before, but a new one, thick with recognition. Respect. She turned back to the crowd, her voice even, deliberate, carrying to every corner of the showroom. You called me a fraud in a building I own. You put your hands on me in a space I built. You thought silence meant weakness, but silence was patience, and patience just ran out. The suited man looked down at his shoes, his face crumbling under the weight of her words. The former manager stared blankly at her dead badge, as if wishing the system would blink green again. The guards lingered near the doorway, no longer protectors, only shadows. Maya's gaze swept across them all, then rested on the phones, the dozens of witnesses who would carry this story far beyond these walls. Dignity isn't negotiable. Respect isn't optional. And prejudice has never been policy, not here, not under my name, not under Horizon. Her words cut through the air like verdicts. Each sentence landed sharp, final, undeniable. A man in the crowd clapped once, twice, then stopped as if afraid of breaking the gravity. But then another joined, and another. Until the entire room echoed with applause, not tentative this time, but thunderous. Elena stood taller, pride burning through the fear she'd carried. Her voice rose above the clapping. That's the leadership we deserve. Maya gave her a nod small, but enough to light the trainee's face with relief. Then, without another glance at the ruined faces of those who had mocked her, Maya moved toward the driver's seat of the Mercedes. She opened the door, the applause still rumbling like distant thunder. Sliding behind the wheel, she looked once more at the crowd. I don't need to record clips. I am the result they're looking for. And I'll make sure the world remembers what happened here today. The engine roared to life, deep and commanding. She shifted into gear, the applause swelling louder, phones flashing like spotlights on a stage. As she pulled forward, the suited man stumbled back, nearly tripping over himself to get out of the way. The message was clear. The space no longer belonged to him, if it ever had. The car glided toward the exit, lights cutting across the showroom floor. And with every foot of distance, the weight of what had happened settled deeper into those left behind. By the time the glass doors closed behind her, the story was no longer just hers. It belonged to every witness, every phone, every viewer who would see it online and know justice doesn't shout. Justice stands still. Justice waits. And when it moves, nothing can stop it.